What's up, everybody? Kono Pro here. So basically, what I got today for you is a quick little video about what not to do when you're running HDMI cables or electrical cables in a wall. So I was at a client's house and they asked me to repull some existing HDMI cables that were in the wall. And typically, there would be a low voltage conduit ran in the wall that you would run the HDMI cables in the wall, and that Romex electrical um, cable right there would be set back and notched into the pressure block, and then have a nail plate on it, and then all that would be proper. But of course, that's not the way it was. So we went to pull the HDMI cable, and it was getting caught on something. And I shot a little video sort of explaining that, and it's going to be coming up here, and you can see that here in a minute. But what I didn't explain was, how I found out where to cut out the notch. And so what I did is, where the HDMI cables were going in on the top, I sent down my electrical fish line. Okay, it's a steel fish line you can get at your local hardware store. I sent that down into the hole, and as soon as it hit like where it was basically blockage, where it was hitting the block, I measured, I pulled out the line, I put my finger on the metal cable on my fish line, I pulled it out, and then I measured, that was about 10 inches, 12 inches. I measured down on the wall, and then that's where I scribed my line. And I just basically cut open about an 8-inch by 8-inch, little opening so I can explore what's there. And whenever I do that, I always cut real shallow, so I know that I'm dealing with cables and wires on the other side of the wall. So when I cut real shallow with my saw, so if they do run it something like this, it won't hit anything. So here's the video as is. Check it out.
This was ran before. We were trying to pull this HDMI cable and it wouldn't pull. That's because it was the people who installed this before. They just ran these cables and did a little notch through right here, which is really bad. And so when we were trying to pull out the HDMI cable to replace it, it was getting hooked here and where the drywall was. And then see this Romex that someone ran for this electrical right here? That's totally illegal. I'm not supposed to have that. If someone were to put a screw through this drywall right there, they would hit that. And then when I cut this, I was sort of thinking it might be like that, so I was really careful when I cut, and thank goodness I didn't nick those, but I'm going to have to take care of that. I'm going to have to notch that wood out, set that back in there, and then put nail plates on that wood, and then notch that wood back so I can run the new HDMI cables through there. It technically should be in a conduit, but we're not doing that. We're just going to run them back in through that pressure block there. But there it is. All right, we'll get it done. Bye.
So there it is. That's how it looks after we're done. We notched the pressure block, set back that Romex about 1.5 inches into the pressure block, and ran some new HDMI cables and put some nail plates, and it's going to be a lot safer now when we patch it back up. And there it is. Hope that helps you all. But this is a typical problem I see. A lot of people they'll hire someone to come to their house, and it might be a handyman or someone, and they come over and they say, yeah, I can put a new plug and some new HDMI cables behind your TV. No problem. No big deal. Yeah, $500-600 or whatever it is. And then they just basically cut a hole in the wall, throw a plug in the wall, and then run their Romex down the wall, and wherever it hits a block, they just notch a little hole in the drywall, pull it out, and then sort of like inlay it into the drywall around the pressure block, and then feed it down to another plug so they can tap into power. And that's not safe. That's really bad. So that's why I always recommend hiring licensed contractors, licensed electricians, and licensed people to do this kind of stuff, because they wouldn't have allowed it to be ran in the first place the way it was ran. So, but the way it was ran existing, this is what we had to deal with, and we're just there to run some new HDMI cable. So like I was saying, here is evidence that that's exactly what they did. They ran the cables down. As soon as it hit the pressure block, they just cut a little hole in the drywall and fed it through and made some little notches. and then ran the cables back down to the bottom part, and like I said, connected into the box that's down at the bottom next to the floor. And then when they patched it with some tissue paper and some plaster. Classic handyman move. So I always recommend using a licensed contractor. I'm not trying to knock handymen because there are some amazing handymen out there that would never do any work like this and would never let work like this fly. Don't get me wrong. There are some amazing handymen out there. Unfortunately, I've come across a lot of jobs that were done, per handyman, and this is sort of how it is. And sometimes they think this is the right way to do things, and it's not. That's why getting a licensed person who's been, their experience has been it's been background checked, it's been qualified, that they actually have the experience, and these kinds of things shouldn't happen if you're dealing with someone who's licensed and knows what's going on. But as you can see, the way I cut the drywall, I cut it in a nice square so that way I can just sort of set that piece back in there. Add a little bit more backing in that corner, in that bottom corner, and then put that piece back in there and patch it up and make it look, just like we never were there and the new HDMI cables were installed, and we're going to leave the job a lot safer. And that's how we do it. And hope this video, and it just shows you all a little bit something. There's a lot of homeowners out there that might want to have, their HDMI cables and their power ran behind their TV. And if so, this is just something to watch out for. If you hire someone to do it, make sure they don't do it like this. Make sure you ask them, are you going to run it in like a low voltage conduit, or are you just going to run the wires, throw them into my wall? You should know what you're paying for. So don't ever feel bad to ask anybody you're hiring, how are you going to do it? And if they make you feel bad or make you feel weird about asking questions on how or what they're going to do to your property, then maybe you shouldn't have them on your property. So this is basically how it looks after it's all done. We patched it back up, used some seismic mesh drywall tape and some 5-minute plaster, smooth set, and smoothed it all out and patched it, and then matched the paint and painted it. Made it look like new. Like I said, we're going to leave this a lot safer than it was before. Brand new HDMI cables. And hope this brings some awareness to everybody out there, watching these videos. These things matter, If they're run right, then they're great. If they're ran unsafe, then it could be, bad for your home and for your health. So there it is, everybody. Kono Pro, appreciate you. Please subscribe. Leave a comment if you'd like. And we hope to see you on the next one, everybody.